Any other additions? Seeing none, could we have a motion to approve? Ken? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Confirmation of the minutes of December the 19th. Are there any errors or omissions? Steve?
I'll move the minutes of December 19th, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Okay, at 9:05, we have our appointment with Gerrit and Sinke, Deputy Chief of Training and Safety, and Heath, Wright, Chief Fire Marshal, City of Lethbridge. Larry?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Council. As just introduced by Reeve Hickey, we have two guests from the City of Lethbridge Fire Department. We met with them at the administrative level earlier this week, and they explained a little bit to us about a grant they are applying for, that if they are successful in their grant application, I believe there could be good benefits for citizens throughout Lethbridge County and the city and the region generally. And they're here just to explain a little bit about that grant and what they're hoping to achieve with it. And ultimately, out of this as well, Mr. Chairman and Council, probably a resolution kind of generally supporting what they're looking for, if you are in agreement with that, would be a good thing. And we do have a draft resolution. We don't have it written before you, but when that time comes, if you're interested in that, certainly we can read that out, and if you're supportive of that, that would be a positive thing. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, we'll just turn it over to our guests. Great, thank you.
Oh, thanks for coming in this morning.
You're up, guys.
Morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's actually an honor to be here, and thank you so much for squeezing us into your agenda on this very cold morning. Pardon me?
We knew it was going to be cold, so we keep inside.
I was in Edmonton the last 2 days, and apparently it was officially the coldest place on earth. So it's wonderful to be back here. Okay, so as a City of Lethbridge Fire Department, we are applying for a grant. It's through the provincial government, and it's a training-focused grant. There's basically 3 initiatives I would like to real quickly, it won't take too much of your time, but just to briefly speak about. And we can flesh them out separately if you would like, but we would like to apply for the grant kind of as a package deal. So the first thing that we would like to apply for under this grant funding is for something that we've called the Agricultural Wildland Cooperative. Now, as you know, over the last dozen years, we've had several substantial wildland fire events that tend to come from the west side of the city and head towards the city boundaries. Those wildland fires generally happen within the county of Lethbridge. Obviously, we have 2 interests. One is to protect the county of Lethbridge and the farms that sit somewhere between that Old Man River and the western boundary of the city. But of course, we have a huge interest as well in the city of Lethbridge. We know, and we've seen with Fort McMurray, once it reaches the city boundary, it's with wind-driven fires, it's very difficult to stop these events. So what the Agricultural Wildland Cooperative is going to do is really going to have a look at the farming partners that come alongside in these big events. When these things happen, several county fire departments, of course, come out and are involved. We work very closely together with them. We all have the same procedures. We know what staging looks like. We know what deployment looks like. We know what communication looks like. When the farmers come alongside, the farmers come with huge equipment. They come with enormous energy, and they come with the right motivation and drive to help out and put out these fires. And we commend that, we respect that, and we need that. They, quite frankly, a tractor and a disc is going to put out a whole lot more fire than one fire truck and a couple people on a hose line. The problem that we come up with, as you know, when these wildland fires happen, we have lots of equipment out in the fields, fire apparatus. We have almost zero visibility, and when the agricultural partners really don't know what deployment looks like, what communication looks like, or even what the game plan is of the fire suppression effort, it actually results in a substantial hazard for us. Because, as you know, we have a lot of people out in the fields. When we have tractors running around all over the place, it could really create quite a hazard for them and for us. So what we want to do is we want to be proactive in this situation. We want to develop this Agricultural Wildland Cooperative, or AWC. And the AWC will do a few things. First of all, we would like to engage in phase one of this cooperative. We would like to engage the farmers between the western boundary of the city and the Old Man River. We would like to create a proactive registry that says, what kind of equipment do you have available? Are you willing to help out in these events? And is that equipment available throughout the year? Or what times of the year is it going to be available? We would like then to educate them on when an event hits, this is who you call. This is what staging looks like. It doesn't mean you pick up your disc and go disc. Come to staging, and we'll let you know kind of what our game plan is and where we can utilize you in this event. While we're speaking to these farmers anyway, we would also like to use that opportunity to engage our Fire Smart program. And the Fire Smart program has already been engaged by the county fire departments a little bit, and basically just say, hey, you know, think about fire events and how can you actually set up your farm so that the risk of fire spread into your personal property is the you know, as little as possible. And then we would like to create basically a call out system where when an event hits, a call out goes out to these people and saying, hey, we have this happening and this is how we could utilize you. There's still a lot of unanswered questions around insurance, questions around do these people want to get paid when they're actually engaged. I'm not here to tell you that I've got all the pieces of the puzzle figured out, but that is the journey that we're going on. Completely understanding that somewhere along the line there's going to be some detours and a couple little roadblocks here and there, but we hope to solve those as time goes by. The training grant, we literally found out about this training grant about 2.5 weeks ago, and we have to have it in and completed by today. So that's why we're here and kind of looking for your support on that piece, on the Agricultural Wildland Cooperative. Don't know if there's any questions, so that's the first component of what we're applying for under the grant. Any questions on that piece?
So just kind of out of curiosity,
Yes.
how many farmers do you think, like for instance on the west side, are left?
There's not going to be
that many, is there?
there's not going to be a huge amount. And what I envision is that more people are going to jump on board that are perhaps not within that phase one. It's our initial pilot project, but I would imagine, because for example, highway colonies, they come out in droves, and I imagine that we would engage them, and really I see it also as a program that's going to mushroom a little bit. If it works for the city of Lethbridge, it's going to work for Nobleford, it's going to work for Picture Butte and other communities within the county.
Personally, I think it's a great idea. You know what's what, you know who's going where.
Right.
Instead of everybody running around, you know, doing whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I just want to stress that their energy and their equipment is something we value immensely. We just need to organize the effort.
Claus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I read that, I thought it was a great idea because I can just imagine the chaos that can happen because of that, and everybody's fired up to get things done and fire. And you were talking about compensation. I don't know. You know, it's probably up to the people that are willing to do it, but I don't think compensation is one of the biggest things that are going to be there because everybody just wants to help and put that fire out or prevent it from spreading. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Compensation has actually never ever been an issue in all these events. I can't remember one saying, I'm coming out, but I want so much an hour. That's never been an issue. The second piece of the three programs that we're applying for under the grant is it's just to put on a one-week mental health symposium. And basically, first responders, it doesn't matter if you're city or county, first responders see, hear, and smell things that most of humanity never ever does. What that means for us is if that is not addressed, people eventually retire as a shell of the human being that they once were. What it means out for the county services is volunteer retention is terrible. It's very difficult to keep people around if you haven't thought about the mental health piece of what these people go through. I went out, I was deployed to Fort McMurray on day 3 of their large wildfire event. And on day 3, fire suppression efforts were priority number 2, and the mental health of their staff is priority number 1 because they realized they had an enormous mental health crisis on on their doorstep. So we've worked a lot already with the City of Lethbridge over the last 10 years to make the mental health conversation from being taboo around the kitchen table to a safe topic. However, we have quite a journey ahead of us. So there's 3 real quick components that we would like to cover in a 1-week symposium. We will definitely engage the rural services as well, just as much as fire. They would have an opportunity to register for this thing as well. So day 1 and 2 of this mental health symposium would be a chaplaincy program. We recognize that there are psychologists out there, and we recognize there's peer debriefers, and peer debriefers are just fellow volunteers or fellow firefighters. We realize that there's a gap. A lot of firefighters are dealing with a lot of other things on their brain, whether it's family or whatever it is. We recognize there's only one bucket of stress, home or work, it doesn't matter. So a chaplaincy program is something that we realize is a big gap for us as a city. As I imagine, it's a gap as well out for the rural services. So that would be day 1 and 2 of this event. Day 3 and 4 would be, how do you if somebody is in deep psychological trouble, as a fellow firefighter, how do you actually engage them in conversation? How do you even bring that up? So that's day 3 and 4 is advanced individual. How do you deal with those people that work around you? And day 5 is just to speak about some real big issues that when they happen, they can just simply destroy a fire department. And really what those 3 are is the death of a co-worker or a death of a fellow volunteer in the county situation, the suicide of a co-worker. We all know that suicide rates amongst emergency responders is vastly higher than it is in any other profession. So suicide of a co-worker and a line of duty death. We know that these things happen, and so it's not a good idea to turn a blind eye to it. Let's be proactive. When these things happen, how do you equip your team to come alongside and to be able to weather that storm? So that's number 2 of the piece that we're applying for. Any thoughts or questions on that piece? Number 3 is a program we offered it last year as well. It's called the Nozzle Forward Program. In the fire service, the concept used to be, and it still to some degree is, all we need to do is put the wet stuff on the red stuff and we all go home. We all understand that there's a lot more to fire science than there ever was. There's extensive research out there that shows that if you don't understand flow path, if you don't know how to read smoke, if you don't know how to look for collapse zones, the line of duty death becomes a real possibility in your service. We've invested huge time and energy into this as a city over the last number of years. There's definitely still pockets of gaps of this knowledge out in the outlying services, not to a fault of theirs, but they are also working, several jobs on the side, and firefighting is not their full-time career. So we'd like to put on the Nozzle Forward program again. So we ran it last year. We would like to run it again this year. And basically what it does, it takes all of that research that's out there and translates that into easy to understand language so that you take a 2-day workshop, and whether that's full-time or volunteer alike, and you're equipped with 80% of the basic tools that you can use immediately where the rubber meets the road. So you can go back out to your service and you just come up with a lot of usable knowledge that helps you do your job a lot more effectively and a lot more safe. So that's number 3 of the program, is the Nozzle Forward program. In the end, we're applying for about these 3 components are about a $75,000 pocket of money that we would like to apply for under the provincial fire training grant.
Any questions? Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to you guys for including the county departments in this. It helped them greatly. The mental health symposium and the last training, does that basically include like there's no fee for our firefighters to attend and everything?
So there will still it depends on, so let me backtrack slightly. Whenever we run any type of program, we run them completely cost recovery. Our intent is never to make money. So for example, when we ran Nozzle Forward last year, I believe the registration fee was $220 per person. And that was, I think in the end, we netted something like $320 over the entire program. Our object is always to run cost recovery. So if the grant funding covers the cost of bringing an instructor up, these instructors come from Seattle and they come with 3 or 4 of them. So obviously the registration cost would be vastly reduced. I could not promise that there is no registration cost. All we do is we project what is our cost of the program. There's simple things like providing food and that type of stuff. We simply want to show cost recovery. So might there still be registration cost? Probably will be something, but it will be vastly reduced if we get the grant funding approved.
Thank you. Any other questions? Like, I personally think it's a great idea. Anytime you can help anybody, I think that's great. I think, mental health for so many people is very important, because like you said, we have absolutely no idea what goes on out there and what some people see, and it's gotta be pretty bad at times. Larry, you said you had a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I could read that out, if it's acceptable to council, or you can tweak it slightly as you see fit, but the proposed motion is that council supports the City of Lethbridge Fire Department's application for a fire services training program grant to help establish an agricultural wildland cooperative, host a mental health symposium, and to promote the Nozzle Forward program.
Any discussion on it? Oh, we need somebody to move it, sorry. Yeah. Any discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Well, thank you very much for coming in this morning.
Thank you for your time.
Let's move down to, I-1. Very.
Morning. All right, we'll move down to the Axe Appeal Committee 2020 appointments for soil conservation, weed and pest control. So the executive summary here is Alberta Agriculture and Forestry. They dictate that each municipality appoint an Axe Appeal Committee. By doing so, we remain eligible for the ASP grant. Wasn't a big deal in years past, but in the last cycle, all those that didn't have an Axe Appeal Committee appointed, they held back their funds until they appointed them. So there were a lot of counties scrambling. We've always had one, and our recommendation here is that County Council appoint the following members at large to the Axe Appeal Committee. These people have already agreed to sit on this committee for this year. They include Jack Bratt, Will Schulten, Brian Harbers, Rob Van Diemen, and this is a one-year term. Just a note on this, it is very difficult to find people to sit on this committee. We have never met, and there's no compensation. So what happens if they appeal a weed notice and it goes to this level, then we would have a meeting and they would decide. Fortunately, we've never had to sit. So trying to convince people to sit on this committee is difficult, and we're very fortunate to have these fellows here sit on our committee.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I'll move that we do appoint the members at large of the Axe Appeal Committee, and that we appoint Jack Bratt, Will Schulten, Brian Harbers, and Rob Van Diemen for a term of 1 year.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we usually do this at a different time of the year? Like during the organizational meeting, or?
It's usually done at the organizational meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Anything else before the 9:30? I don't see anything there. Yeah, we can do that. 9:30, should we wait till 9:30?
Yeah, you could do first reading for 220-001 Ipswich.
Sorry, we could do first reading for which one?
Each one. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I've got 3 invitations to present to you this morning. First one is the Picture Group and District Chamber of Commerce Annual General Meeting. So an invitation for the Picture Group and District Chamber of Commerce was received for Reeve Hickey, Councillor Klaus Vanderveen, and Councillor Maurice Eastrap to attend their annual general meeting on January 31st, 2020 at the Picture Group Senior Center. The program of the evening consists of a short business meeting, followed by dinner and entertainment. Awards including Business of the Year and Citizen of the Year will also be presented. Members of council have attended this event in the past, so therefore the recommendation that Reeve Hickey, Councillor Klaus Vanderveen, and Councillor Maurice Eastrap be authorized to attend the Pitcher Butte and District Chamber of Commerce Annual General Meeting on January 31st, 2020.
Ken? We'll just do the Chamber of Commerce.
Support the Pitcher Butte Chamber of Commerce, members that are appointed to attend the Commerce General Meeting.
Any discussion? Call for the question, who's in favor? Opposed, carried.
So the next one here I have is the Consul General of Japan birthday celebrations for His Majesty the Emperor of Japan. An invitation for Reeve Hickey from the Consul General of Japan to attend a birthday celebration reception for the Emperor of Japan on February 20th, 2020 was received. Reeve has been invited to this event in the past. So administration is recommending that the Reeve be authorized to attend the birthday celebration reception for His Majesty the Emperor of Japan on February 20th, 2020 at the Ranchman's Club in Calgary.
I just have a question. It says the invitation is non-transferable. So that means Reeve and Coleman.
Yes, correct.
So, in the past, we've got 2 invitations. Do we get one this year?
I believe it's for yourself and a guest.
No, I mean, we got, one for the Deputy Reeve, and sometimes we got one for the, Lorraine.
Mr. Chairman, we only see one invitation this year, and that was for yourself.
Oh, okay.
So in the past, have we received?
Yes, we always receive 2, one for the Reeve and the Deputy Reeve, but this year only received 1.
It could be. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that Reeve Hickey be authorized to attend the birthday celebration reception for His Majesty the Emperor of Japan on February 20th, 2020 at the Ranchman's Club in Calgary.
Any discussion? Call for the question, those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Okay, and the final invitation here. An invitation was received from the Southern Alberta Chinese Association for their New Year Gala on February 1st, 2020 at the Coast Hotel and Conference Center. The Reeve has been invited to other Chinese New Year events in Lethbridge in the past. The recommendation that the Reeve or his designate be authorized to attend the Southern Alberta Chinese Association New Year's Gala on February 1st, 2020 at the Coast Hotel and Conference Center.
So should we talk about their ask for a sponsorship at the same time?
Yes, so they did send a sponsorship form as well. There's an option for $300 for the display of the county's banner and logo, or $600 for a table of 8 and a banner and logo as well.
So I don't know if there's anybody else interested in going. Like, would you have enough to make up the 8? Is it worthwhile doing? That's 40, so that's 400 or $360 for the sponsorship. Because they tickets are $30 each, aren't they?
Correct, yes, they're free.
Is it gonna be an issue getting 8 of us, or?
Well, that's why I'm asking, is there anybody interested in
I
going?
am. If that's the moment it got from 8 yet.
Yeah, it's of course.
No kidding.
It's here, like. It was an evening.
So you're 8. Well, we got 2, 3, 4, 5. Steve, sorry. You interested in one? It's real authentic Chinese food. Like, I mean, some different stuff.
Yeah, that's really good.
Did they take spouse along your boat?
But then somebody will crowd it, eh, when you do have it, eh?
Well, they're moving venues, so it probably will help.
Yeah.
It was at the place down the old fire hall down, the Ethics Center. It was kind of like, you know, squeeze in.
Not if we have no room, no. I'd like to go.
We got 5 from council.
Sure, I'm supposed
Okay. So you want to do the table for 8? And the sponsorship, the $600 one? Or do you just want to buy 8 tickets?
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman. You know, we, for quite a few years, we had a real good relationship with the Chinese people, the delegations that came down from China, you know, and also the groups from here. And I know right now, you know, it's kind of not a very lukewarm issue to be opposed to the Chinese because of some of the trade issues we have. However, I think we should not back off, and we should be down there and, hey, encourage them, hey, we're still here, and we'd like to do business with you. Because it is maybe, you know, locally down here, but there was quite a few people from China there too, wasn't it, Lauren, the last time we went?
Well, there's a few always.
Yeah.
So, the people from the consulate are there.
All I'm saying is, you know, we should not be part of it, you know, to be cold to them. We should be the other way around. We still, you know, feel that we'd like to have a good relationship with the Chinese. Thank you.
So I just want to know whether you want to do the sponsorship or just buy.
Yeah, and that was my point. Yeah, I want to do the sponsorship. Thank you.
So you making that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for hopping in so quickly. Sprinting in.
Morning, Hillary.
Good morning.
I think anybody was hopping this morning. Yeah. Okay, we have a 9:30 public hearing for LA Power Systems. Sorry, Hillary, go ahead. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, good thing. Need somebody to open a public hearing. Steve, all in favor? Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just get the map to the location of this particular application to amend the county's land use bylaw, and it's for a parcel to the west of Nobleford, within the southeast 10, 11, 23 West 15. It's directly west of the Lethbridge County Transfer Station and the Nobleford Lagoons. So there is some restrictions on this parcel in terms of development as it stands, because there's a 300-meter setback to the transfer station, so the land is pretty much unable to have a residence on it. So with that, the landowner has had this property up for sale for quite some time, and there has been an application made to amend the zoning to go to rural general industrial, which would allow for future industrial uses. And Mr. John Bosch of LA Power Systems Limited is wanting to put up a hydrovac facility on this site as one of the first industrial uses for that particular parcel. The parcel would have to be rezoned for this particular use because it would be considered an industrial use, and there are regulations under Alberta Environment. There's some strict regulations under Alberta Environment for this particular use. Mr. Bosch is here today. If you have any questions on the specifics of what he would want to do on the parcel.
Any questions of Hillary before, or you can kind of?
Not quite,
Okay.
sorry. We did circulate the application to the county departments in the town of Nobleford and some external agencies. There's no issues with regards to the application from the internal county departments. We did talk to the technical services supervisor and the public operations department to discuss any impacts to the road network, and given the traffic that is anticipated, there will be no impact to the road at this time. If there is future uses, those would be, and the existing, or if the application is approved, there would be conditions on the permit, development permit, with regards to roads. We would look at a road use agreement if required. We also sent the application, as mentioned, to the town of Nobleford. They had some initial concerns, but after a meeting that I attended along with Mr. Bosch on November the 19th, their county council, after receiving more information, was amenable to the application and has since supported the application as it stands. And that is in your agenda package. And I do believe that's everything. We did advertise the application at the December 31st and January 7th editions of the Sunny South News. We didn't receive any comments or concerns with regards to the application from that notice of public hearing. Are there any questions of council?
Any questions for Mr. Bosch? Pretty easy. Well, I guess I have to ask my usual questions. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the bylaw? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the bylaw? And last call, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the bylaw? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor to the bylaw? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor to the bylaw? And last call, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor to the bylaw? Is there any further questions from council or staff? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What would typically be in the slurry? Is it just mainly dirt and water, or is there kind of contaminants, or?
It's, we use city water to fill our trucks, and it's just strictly dirt. If there was any issues, if we don't do oil field, if there was any issues, we have test kits. If there was any, you mix it in, and if it shows red, we take it to a Shervita or a place that's approved for. So it's just no different than over water than the garden.
Go ahead.
And then when the dry material, how long would the dry material have to stay on site? Like, it's hauled away, I assume? And
Yeah, it's gotta go, according to Alberta Environment, it has to go to a registered landfill. We have a place in Spring Coulee that wants it for covers, so we haul it there.
Okay,
You know, it all depends on the weather. I mean, a lot of times when you dump it, it's only about this thick, so if you got a nice big area, you know, 2 days, it's all, you know, caked up and you scrape it up, put it in an end dump.
okay. So it wouldn't end up being a big pile
No,
of dry after. Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing no more questions, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor? Opposed? Second reading? Bob? Yes. Any discussion or questions? Yes.
Typically, we wouldn't, you know, put it, I know this is an industrial park, but it is an industrial use, but typically we wouldn't put an industrial park a mile off of a highway. We would want them on a highway just for the truck road use. I don't really see this as being different. I mean, stuff like this we should try and encourage not to be on our gravel roads if we can put these things close to a highway. That's an ideal location for these. The road isn't normally in good shape when there is a lot of truck use, and I just concerned that it's gonna get in bad shape again. I know half a dozen trucks a week don't amount to much, but it is still extra wear and tear on our roads.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Third reading? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's move down to bylaw 2-001. That's our pre-con.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is first reading of bylaw 20-001, the first land use bylaw amendment for 2020. And I don't know why we have, there we go. So in this, we've had discussions with pre-count over the last couple of years as to them wanting to expand, they have to create a stormwater management pond on their property that was done in 2009. They have recently purchased the parcels surrounding them from the previous landowner. So they're looking to expand their operations, maybe create some synergies with what they do on their site. And with that, they do have to rezone their parcel. Currently, it is under Lethbridge Urban Fringe. And in this early discussions with them, it would, the adjacent parcels, I don't think I can find my unacceptable. As you can see on the map here, to the west of the site, it's zoned rural general industrial. So early discussions with them were that the rural general industrial would be the best fit for pre-con to be zoned as. The use would be considered light processing and manufacturing underneath that district. So they have come in late December, they did submit an application to rezone their parcel plus the three that they, and 3 additional parcels to the rural general industrial use. Sorry, land use district. So that they can expand and do what they need to do to improve their operations on their site. They need to have new office space, they need to have more manufacturing space, and they need more storage space and parking space, essentially. So it's kind of they've come to a threshold where they need to do these things. In the Lethbridge, the IDP that we have, intermunicipal development plan that we have with the town of Colehurst, it does say that these areas would be suitable for industrial uses. It could be, it says it may be rural and general industrial or business light industrial. So with that, we did have some initial comments from the town, just with a couple of concerns with regards to what uses could be approved. I'm not sure, we're gonna have more specifics on those concerns. We're having an IDP committee meeting with them on Monday. So, but we'll kind of flesh that out at that time. But until then, we do have an application that is up for first reading. And so we would ask at this time that council complete first reading of this one.
So Hillary, could you show us which pieces they
Oh,
bought?
sure.
Did they buy the ones in the
So
kind of purple?
they bought this parcel here, they bought this parcel down here, and they bought, these, so there's this odd little sliver here, and then this parcel here. So kind of this area to the west, the area to the east, and the area to the south. This long linear parcel is still under a different ownership.
So how does that other piece of land get legal access?
There is a road right of way.
Okay.
The white lines, there is a road right of way that goes all the way around Pre-Con. So, there still is access to all of the parcels as they stand.
It's just not developed past
It's
your
just-
gate, right?
Yeah, there's just not a developed road in there, but there is a right of way to build a road. Yes, they have physical and legal access to their parcel.
Okay, that's awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now they own, that whole piece, well, the light part, that's where they have their processing facilities, and then everything to my right, up to the range road there.
Yeah, they just don't know, this parcel here is exempt.
Okay,
That was the previous anhydrous ammonia facility. So that's the one that they didn't purchase.
When you say exempt, what do you mean, Hillary?
It's just not included in there. They didn't buy it.
Oh, okay.
So it's not included in the
I
zoning
just was wondering
application.
if there was a reason why they didn't buy it, or just.
I don't know.
and is there an anhydrous ammonia?
No, that's been since
It's gone.
removed.
That's gone.
Yeah, yeah, but they didn't purchase that particular property at this time, so it's not included in their application.
So how does this, well, I think you kind of sort of answered it, but how does this kind of fit in with the kind of development we've had, industrial or joint development with the town of Dover?
So this area is part of the joint area structure plan that we're working on with the town, which is also going to be discussed on Monday. And it does fit in very well in terms of what they're proposing to do. They're also proposing to do that stormwater management system, which would, they're working with the town on tying that into that system. So it dovetails very well with the opportunities that we've had with the town. We'll have to, once that area structure plan has been approved, we will probably have further discussions with the town on the joint, how we'll have that as a joint venture moving forward, like servicing and things like that.
So this would be part of the joint venture
Yeah.
moving forward?
Well, this is a separate entity, but in the future, if there's future development or for future servicing of the area, that's when we would have that joint, start that joint venture with the town. Right now, this is just a standalone parcel in the county that we're.
Class?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It seems like the water problem is solved with the town. So the wastewater, is there gonna be any, or is that not
No, they
an
don't
issue?
need wastewater, because it's just fabrication. They don't need, they have a septic system for their office that's adequate for what their needs are.
Class?
Then I'll move the first reading of bylaw 20-001.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Hillary, like that road right away, what's there, which is not in place to be used, but is it a possibility that needs to be put in place somewhere down the line? And who's gonna be picking that one up then?
When it comes to building a new road, so it would depend on the development that's going in there. If they require, like, say that long linear parcel, this one here, were to want to develop, they would be required to provide, to actually build the road, and then we would maintain that road. So that's how it works in development. When somebody needs to have that physical access, they have to build the road, and then the county puts it into their inventory for future maintenance. So they would enter into a development agreement with the county to have that road developed, and they would ensure that it was done to the county standards.
Any other questions? Can I call for a question then? Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hillary. Okay, now we move on to Jan. For the capital budget. Okay.
So, good morning, council.
Carol.
I have the 2020 to 2024 capital budget in front of you for approval. So as you know, during the week of November 25th, we had some budget deliberations, and then again on December 10th for some feedback and direction from council as to what you'd like to see for the final budget coming forward. The 2020 capital budget total expenses, including the already approved fleet portion, is $8,427 million. We also have the 2021, 22, 23, and 2024 proposed capital budgets for approval. So those are planned budgets that we, as administration, anticipate will take place in the future, but may be subject to change as we bring those budgets forward annually.
Just like a question.
Yeah.
On the operating side, we need to do 5 years, isn't it?
3 on the operating and 5 on capital.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not the same, but that's what the NGA changes said.
Okay.
I think the 5-year capital is more for grant information because I know Amelia has to submit future projects. I think that's why they did it that way.
And to give how much money they're not gonna give us.
I guess.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's for prioritization or, I couldn't tell you what the reason behind it is, but that's my guess. It's grant funding. So as mentioned, this budget, I've included some attachments for you. It just shows the total capital budget. Again, zero tax support on any capital projects. So 2020, $8,427 million. Have the revenue sources identified through grants, proceeds on disposals of equipment, debentures are the revenue as required, which we don't have any in the next 5 years, transfers from reserves, and of course our market access network program, which is its own kind of funding source and expense. And then again, the expenditures are identified for, in more detail by department, and just a 2020 summary of the capital projects also for you. So they're outlined in detail by project, budget requirements, and funding sources.
Any questions? Klaus?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you're saying on this, there is no grants that are available for this?
No, sorry, there's no debentures that we're taking out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do have grant funding.
So how much grant funding do you think is gonna be possible to get?
Well, we put in the budget to receive, sorry, I have to look at it here, just over $3 million. I anticipate we'll receive all of it. It's MSI and FGTF, so I don't, based on the information we received in the correspondence, we should be getting all of that. Future years, we've put it in based on the current information we have, but we won't know until we get to that year.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we could use a motion to approve the 2020 to 2024 capital budget. Morris? How exactly would you want that written?
I think I have a recommendation there, Lauren. Mr. Chairman, on the resolution. I can read it if you like.
Okay.
Moves that the 2020 budget in the total expense amount of $8,427,000 as outlined in the attachments be approved, and that the 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 capital budget expenses in the amounts of $6,129,500, $6,300,000, $5,028,000, and $6,462,000 respectively be approved in principle.
And that can be all done in one motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, Counselor?
Yeah, I was, just a question here that, for the 21, 22, 23, 24, if there would, the grants would not be there anymore, can we still make a change in that in the years to come?
Yes, absolutely. We'll bring these forward annually for final approval.
Yeah, it's not like the city. It's check 4 years at a time. Okay, any other questions? Call for the question, all in favor? Those opposed? Let's do the 20 to 22 operating budget.
So as mentioned in the capital budget, we had budget deliberations and some discussions so we could get direction from council on how to move forward with the operating budget. Through that time, we also received correspondence from the province, which needed some adjustments to the operating budget. So we brought forward a 2020 operating budget, 2021 and 2022. For the 2020 budget, the considerations that were put in place was for the road reconditioning within Public Works to reduce that to 20 miles for the year, reduce the recreation funding by 50% from what was initially proposed. So in year 2020 it would be at 125,000 and then back up to 250,000 for 2021 and 2022. We added in the policing costs as we've received to date from the province for all 3 years. Now with council, the notes that I had was to reduce that for the year 2020 to 125,000 and then bring it back up to 250 for 2021 and 2022. And I believe, if I remember correctly, the reason behind that was because of the portion that we had already put aside in 2019 that will go to the reserve.
Yeah, Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That still works out to 250 for 2020 then, because of the portion was set aside, right?
It's actually a little higher than that because the 2019 budget had 250,000 in it. Yeah.
Yes.
Jen, wasn't there, I'm sorry I missed the meeting on the 19th, but previous to that, was there some other funding too that was going to be used for recreation? There was 91,000 or something, if I remember.
Through the chair, Ann, we do have a reserve, recreation reserve, that already had a balance in it of around 90,000.
Okay.
I think that's what you're thinking of.
And that's exactly what I'm thinking. Thank you.
Any discussion? Heath?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question on the policing costs. There's just been a little confusion around that. When were they needing payment by? Or was it just by the end of the year?
So, Councillor Campbell, through the chair. So our understanding from the last correspondence was that they were gonna hold off requiring funding until April of next year. But we are trying to be a bit proactive because I don't know that these numbers they provided are final. And if they're going to require the 2020 portion in 2021 as well. So that's why we've included it.
So at the mayor's and Reeves meeting the other day, they said, and could change again, because we don't know for sure, that you would be billed for 9 months of service from the RCMP for the year 2020 on January the 1st of 21. And then on January the 1st of 2022, you would be billed for the 12 months of 21. But I don't know whether there's any guarantees that that's exactly the way it's gonna end up being.
There still seems to be a lot of questions.
There's a huge number of questions, and there's a very large number of questions about what is eligible, because at the current time for credit, you need to have an enhanced police system in place. And CPOs are not considered to be enhanced police, so we would not receive any credit for that. Well, then they asked for how many people in the municipalities had CPOs, and I think there's 4 that don't, of the 47 that come to the meeting. And they were surprised, they didn't know that that was the way it was. So, yeah, positive.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, if they don't recognize our CPOs as law enforcement, then why are we even gonna have?
Well, I shouldn't say they don't recognize them, they recognize them, but you don't receive a credit for it. So if you have enhanced policing, like say Strathcona County does, for every officer you have, you get X number of dollars of credit. So if you look back on that sheet I sent you out, that's why a couple of municipalities like Red Deer and Strathcona, their policing costs per capita are less than ours because they have all the enhanced officers. So if there's some way you could get CPOs to the next level, they should be recognized.
Yeah. I think that we should be working on that, to see what we can do in that regard, because I think it's, they're not, of course, qualified to do all the things that the RCMP does, but I still think that, you know, it lightens the burden of the RCMP in the county that we're doing that.
Yeah, it's been, I think they're gonna bring us back some more information right away.
Before, your question, it's important to, first of all, find out if we have to pay for policing, what exactly are we getting for that before we do anything with our CPOs, I think. Because that's still a big question too. Are we gonna get the service we have now, or are we gonna have a broader service? You know, we don't know. Yeah.
Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is probably gonna be a pretty good topic at our coming Foothills Little Low on Friday. I'm sure Al Kenmare is gonna try to explain it as good as possible. And the other one is RCMP will not pursue bylaws, and our peace officers will. So that might be the differences for us, you know, carrying on with the peace officer.
So, there's quite a few questions that came up at Mayor's and Reeve's meeting last time, and I think I sent a brief summary out to everybody. I guess the biggest thing is, if you're going to hire 500 new people, which they say they're going to, who's gonna get them, and are you gonna see each detachment ramp up to full coverage, because most RCMP detachments are not at full strength. So would that eat up the entire 500 people? Or the 500 people you're gonna hire, what exactly are they hiring? Are they hiring more officers, or are they hiring secretarial type stuff, or what are they hiring? There's no answers to the questions, so.
You may get some clarity on Friday.
You might get some more clarity.
Basically, they have the detachments or whatever, and so many RCMP put there. And if they're using this word enhancement, and they're gonna have 500 enhanced officers, is that on top of what they got?
Well, according to them, they're supposed to add 500 more staff to the current RCMP detachments. But there's no definition as to how that works. Or how they're deployed. Or what exactly the term staff means.
That's what I'm thinking.
Any other questions? Yes, Klaus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got one on the recreational one. That we, because we're looking at $200,000, if I correctly, but we don't have an agreement with the communities surrounding us. How can we make a decision on the budget?
tentatively have an agreement with 4, and there's one holdout. But we do have to put something in the budget for it. The likelihood is that the agreements will be in place by April 1st. So we have to be proactive and put it in the budget.
Any other questions? We would need a motion then. Oh,
Sorry, Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, I just was gonna go over a couple more things before,
Oh.
if that's okay. I just wanted to.
I thought we were done, sorry.
No, I'm close to done, we can be done if you want, I'm happy
No.
with an approval, but, I just wanted to mention to council that with the amendments and the discussions and changes we just went through, that it would bring the total tax support increase to 2.476% before growth, and down to 1.597% after growth for 2020. So I just want to make sure council's aware of those percentages before we move forward, and then all of the breakdowns were provided with your attachments.
I'm sorry, but I mean, what is it at the growth?
1.597. That also accounts for the grant funding we took out of the budget as well, that we discussed during deliberations for within the public works too, so.
Any other questions? Jen, are you done?
I am, yes.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? Need a motion then?
Do you want me to read the recommendation?
Go for it.
Okay.
Sure.
Move that the 2020 operating budget expenses in the total amount of $28,201,410 as outlined in the attachments be approved, and that the 2021 and 2022 operating budget expenses in the amounts of $27,831,325 and $28,202,610 respectively be approved in principle.
Any discussion on that? Who's going to do that? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will make that motion, and I just want to thank staff in bringing forward a kind of a realistic budget to begin with. Just thanks for all your background work the last few months, and just with some minor tweaks, we got to this number then.
Any other discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Yeah, thanks, Jen.
It's the Jen show for change. I just have my next report here, just with regards to Bylaw 20-003, which would be the 2020 utility rates, just Schedule A. So through the annual budget process and review of the utility rates, which we do annually, brought forward a few changes. So if you look at the actual bylaw, one of the major changes was the removal of all airport-related utility rates. We no longer operate in the airport, so those can come out of the bylaw. As well, Evergreen Estates, since the annexation with Coaldale, we're no longer responsible for the utilities out in Evergreen Estates. So those are two items which have been removed from the bylaw completely. And the other change is about a 2.5% increase on average to the rates throughout the bylaw where applicable. So we do have some rates that are attached to stormwater improvement levies, etc., that we don't change annually, but the majority of them are changed by 2.5%, and this is to account for the increase from the city on their utility rates, because of course we purchase the water from the city, as well just to adjust for any inflation within the utility department to ensure that we're cost recovery through operations.
So Jen, we operate the airport truck bill still as a county, or do they operate?
We own the truck bill from what I understand, but we lease the land that it's on, and the airport charges us for the water, or sorry, the city charges us for the water now. It's their utility system through there now. So the city bills us for the water that we use. And we lease the space to have the truck fill there.
We did get them to agree to all the
So we need a new bylaw, yeah.
This is just, yeah, this bylaw is just for the utility rates
Yeah.
schedule portion of it, yeah.
Anything further on that? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The North County system, there's a fair increase on that.
Yeah, Councillor Campbell, so that one is a little bit different. The way we do the North and South County rates is, Craig and I sit down and we do a review of the time spent. So there's some operating and maintenance costs in there for having the guys go out and do some of the testing, going to the sites, those kinds of things. And then we do a review of their annual consumption. We actually do a 3-year comparison, come up with their annual consumption, and add in the city's rate changes in there, and then we add them all together to determine their rate. So it's a little bit different than some of the other ones, but there was a bit of an increase there, and I believe that was, and Jeremy can probably even speak to this, just the time that's being spent by our guys in the area. So we had to do some increases. I think it was an hour a week on some of them.
Clause? Oh, well, maybe you let Jeremy first, maybe explain that, or go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Councillor Campbell, through the chair. Some of the rates were just minor adjustments essentially. Once we actually quantified, that was one of the tasks that Craig and I went over, and just to see and quantify essentially what our actual costs were for our operations, and we saw that some of our costs and time was not essentially being accounted for, and hence then we increased some of the time dedicated essentially for in determining that end rate. It only forms a small portion of that though, and that one was only affected the North Co-op because we have with the South Co-op we have a memorandum of understanding with them for a fixed rate essentially for the course of the year, and then that's indexed with inflation or increases, or there's 2% increase or so.
Because of this, are the rates of the north gonna go up for the water users, or is that, or you don't know that one?
Yes, there will be a slight increase. I think it was about 2 to 3%. I think it went from 86 up to 86.7 cents up to 89.9, I think. I can't remember exactly, but I think that's pretty close to what it was, a 2 to 3%. 2 to 3 cent increase, which equated to about 2 to 3%.
Yep, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And the North Co-op is aware of this increase? Yes?
Yeah, they were informed of this, and they had their board meeting here on Friday, or sorry, this past Monday, at which point Craig presented and explained all of the changes to the rates to the board at that time.
Are they still paying the oversized capital cost to us? That's part of their fee.
Yeah.
It would be a little higher than South County.
No, the capital recovery rate, I think it's 4.4 cents or something like that. I think it's the same for both the North Co-op and the South Co-op as far as what that percentage is. But I would have to go back and look at that specifically.
I think we're referring to,
Well, what we originally put the line in.
yeah, so,
We
yeah.
oversized the pipe, so then we charged the North County Co-op above.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I
That's
actually
what I
think
would-
that
and I
was
don't know how
paid
much.
out on,
Is it paid out?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
The North County is paid off?
Yeah, I think it just got paid out 2 years ago. We do charge them a 0.44 cent capital,
But both do that.
yes. But that, I will double check, but I'm almost positive they cleared that, I wanna say 2 years ago maybe?
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't a huge amount of money.
No.
It was $700,000, I think.
Yeah, $60,000 some dollars a year.
Yeah.
But I thought it was gonna be over 10 years, so I can't see that it is.
I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
like I said, I'll double check that, I know we did
Yeah,
a
maybe.
adjustment on it when, Raylan was still there. But I'll double check, I feel like it was paid out though.
Okay, any further discussion on utility rates? So we would need to do through all 3 readings today.
Yes, please.
You have to.
I'll move the first reading.
discussion? Call for question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Second? Any discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Those opposed? Carried. Go to third. Ken? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And third reading.
Move so.
Morris? Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question, those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. City of Lethbridge, ACPIC grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on December 23rd, the City of Lethbridge had contacted the county with regards to a feasibility study on establishing enhanced interactive training for municipal assessors in Alberta, and they would like to fund it through the Alberta Community Partnership Intermunicipal Collaboration Program grant. It's a mouthful. For about $200,000. So in order to do so, it has to be a partnership, and the city would manage, be the managing partner, but they have asked for they've identified participating municipalities to join in on this program. So I've included a copy of the letter. As stated, this is a grant, stated in the letter, this is a grant that's offered by the province, by the government of Alberta to promote municipal viability by providing support to partnerships of 2 or more municipalities to develop a regional service delivery framework. So the city has determined through consultation, and Lethbridge County was identified during this time as 1 or more of a dozen Alberta cities or municipalities that agree on the acute need for a complementary interactive online training system for municipal assessors that offers e-learning, library services, and access to experts and access to shared expertise between municipalities. So it is specific to assessors within the province, and they have quite a few partners that they've included in this aside from us as well. So basically what the city is asking is just that council pass a resolution saying that we're willing to partner with them and so they can proceed with the grant application.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, I guess we could use a motion.
It's quite a lengthy recommendation. It was the one that came from the province, so.
Yeah, I see that. We'll just kind of let Lorraine write that down, as she probably already has. You haven't?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Just waiting for a mover.
Dory?
Move that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And thanks for the work on the budget. That
Thank
was,
you.
Thank you. Good one.
Interesting one this year.
Okay, let's move to L1, corporate retreat. Man, we get to sit in the hot seat.
I've been in it before, I'm okay.
No.
Uh-oh, where's my hat?
Good morning. As we talked about last year when we did, at the beginning of the year, we did the strategic plan retreat. There was a wish of council that even though we did the strategic plan for the remaining term of council, that we meet yearly still to talk about council's ongoing goals and objectives and visions. So this report is suggesting that we do a corporate retreat. There's been a lot of discussion about having it in town, having it out of town. Last year, we did the strategic planning session in town. My recommendation is that we hold it in Lethbridge. The reason for that is given the budget this year, we're very tight economically, and also my hope and vision for this corporate retreat is not having a facilitator, but having council and the management team sit together and work on a few different workshops so that we would facilitate it ourselves. We have quite a few things that we'd like to discuss, level of service for roads, the corporate plan, quite a few things like that, working with budgets. We do have a lot of changes in the management team, and that would give them an opportunity to attend. I also did like that economic development and planning were involved in the last corporate retreat, and if we were gonna have that many staff and council, it just would be more frugal to have it here in Lethbridge. But obviously open to discussion and looking forward to your thoughts.
Awesome.
Well, I'll start, and I can see your point there, and that, you know, there's a lot of changes made, and that, it would probably be good to have something, and maybe something not as extensive, but still, I thought, wasn't it the organizational meeting that we said we were probably not gonna have it this year, and they were gonna skip a year and then do it? Or am I incorrect there?
You're incorrect. Sorry. You asked for it. No, my understanding was we weren't gonna do the strategic planning because we still have until 2022 to do that, but we still wanted to check in for the goals and objectives and the vision setting. And it's also a good opportunity for council to have informal discussions with staff about planning and moving forward.
Any other discussion? Morris, you look like you have something on your mind. It's pretty hard to tell, but yes.
Well, thank you for that, Dan, but, you know, I still think the norm is that you go out of the area, and I always found it was very productive when we would out of the area, because you met at night, maybe at supper time, and certain things were being discussed, what was brought up, and it seems to be, you know, that way you get a little bit more out of it, and you know also what some of the other side, and I'm talking about staff when they're down there, when you're way down there, you get a little bit better feeling from them too, okay, what direction it should be going. And that's my personal thought. I remember, you know, and this is, we've done it once before, and I think we didn't go too far, but the LNID, the Irrigation District, they had a retreat every year too, and we did the same thing. We went to, which was the Lodge Hotel that time. We booked a room down there for 3 days, I think, and it was unbelievable disruptive, because it was a cattleman there, there was a cow-calf man down there, and they were getting the calls that was issued, because I think at that time it was very cold, and there was problems with the feedlot, there was problems with the cow-calf operation, and it just didn't work. And if you would have had it somewhere else, instead of them jumping into the, whatever the concern was, they would get somebody else to look after that. But they were closed, so they put the coast on and they left.
What do the rest of you think? Pardon me? I said, what do the rest of the people think? Steve?
Just on being in town or out of town, last year I thought it worked just fine. I mean, if we're committed to some days, we're committed to days. It's, yeah, it gets into my calendar and I attend, whether it's in town or out of town. So if we save a few $1,000s, I think that's great for the organization by having it in town.
Bob, what do you think?
I'm sort of agreeing with Morris, but either way, but as long as we put 100% into it when we do it.
No matter where.
Yeah.
Shut off our phones and pay attention.
Well, I'll just put my 2 bits in then too, I guess. So it's, for this year, I would agree that we just have it here, because I think it's a little bit different that we're having it here, and after that, I would prefer having it every other year and having it somewhere else. Because in the other organizations that I was in before, we did it every other year, that was the same, but we went off-site, and we've had it on Leipzig more so too, we had it on-site once too, and it wasn't as effective as it was off-site, so that's my 2 bits.
Yeah.
We had the one last year, everybody was going out and they had their phones and stuff like that. And I didn't get a lot out of it. That's right. If you wanna go in to something like that, get a box in the front of the door and have everybody put their cell phones in it. Leave it there or whatever, but I'm saying that's a good idea, but I bet you it's not gonna work. So in any case, we'll probably end up being the same as last year, which is nothing.
Tori.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I felt that our sessions last year were productive. I felt that we got had some good discussion and got a lot out of it. That being said, I also thought that the year prior we did have a productive session when we were off-site. I understand some of the concerns that some council has with other commitments, and I won't disagree. When you are closer to home, it is easier to stay connected and to not want to pull yourself away. At the end of the day, I think we all get individually what we put into it. My preference is still to have it on site and to do it in town. And if there was an appetite from council to look at doing something different, I think I'd have to see more information on that and what that would look like and the cost of that. For the very limited cost of renting a room here in town, I think we can get a lot out of it. Thank you.
Since we're talking about this year's one, and it looks like the date's got to be set because it's pretty hard to get something anywhere else. So for this year, you know, I would just recommend that county council approve the 2-day corporate retreat here in Lethbridge.
I didn't say anything yet, but I do see some more value to going out of town, but I certainly am willing to give this a try. I kind of do like the idea that maybe every couple hours you have a little bit of a break and you can go check to see if you do have anything you need to absolutely attend to. But other than that, I think as long as we're wholly committed and willing to do that, certainly wouldn't want to hold it in this building, no.
No, it's too distracting here.
Yeah. There's probably lots of other places to get that would work, so I would be willing to stay here. And you made a motion to?
For this year, yeah. That we do it here.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Carried.
I really like Councillor Benson's idea about the basket with the cell phones. I'm gonna start doing that here every time we have it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
like to read Twitter once in a while.
We'll give you Twitter breaks. Okay, now here's the big question.
Dates.
Dates, and I think January's out, so, February, how does February look?
If I, May again, I just looked at the February calendar down there, and I think we have a meeting at the beginning down there, or meetings at the beginning down there, and then not 2 months, I think, and I would like to keep it that way. The reasons for that is, there might be some of us down there that would like to take the opportunity to go somewhere. But if we have one in the middle of the month again, in February, which it looks like it could happen then basically that's gonna tie our hands out of
How would you feel about the?
able to go anywhere. So if any place, it should be, January is too late now anyways, but I would say March too. And we probably only need a good day anyways, right?
Day and a half.
Good day, yeah.
So
Thank you.
I would agree with that, and that'll give us time to give a more robust workshop and get organized. So, if we were looking at, what do you guys think about those first 2 weeks of March? Is the second week March break, or how does that work? I don't. What's that?
February is our reading week usually.
Oh, okay.
February the 18th.
17th or something.
What do you guys think about that first 2 weeks of March?
Well, the first 2 weeks of March, or the last week of February. Because you got the reading week there, that
They
is.
just say they wanna go away.
Somebody's gone away, and that would be
Yeah.
the last week of February.
Well,
I could
we're
call
trying-
in from New York, but.
We'll try to work around it.
Do a conference call.
No. I don't like having 2 weeks in a row gone, because, and then it's RMA in third week of March, so if they're gonna have it in March or whatever it is.
What about the 3rd and 4th, like that, Monday and Tuesday of March?
No, really not there anything.
Which, Bob?
Council's on Thursday.
2nd and 3rd of March. Does that work for everybody?
I'm gone from the 20th, I'm gone all the rest of March from the 29th.
But does the 2nd and 3rd of March work?
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. What about you, Steve?
Yes.
Ken? Lauren?
I think so.
Beautiful. Bob? Lorraine, can you make sure you send the calendar for 2nd and 3rd?
We only have a council meeting on the 5th.
Yeah. So,
Do it in the middle of the second week, March, fine.
yeah.
Well, the first week of March is
2nd and 3rd
fantastic.
work? Sorry, I forgot March.
Not third.
Second and third, yeah.
March, you guys? Yeah. You think?
When is the
Yeah.
honor training?
Yeah, just a short.
Oh, Dave's on
Third and fourth.
Third and fourth.
How about the 3rd and 4th? We just got a big
Sure.
economic development thing to do. Yeah.
Then you got council next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, that, what copies, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, we're good.
3rd and 4th? 3rd and 4th, got it. This one?
No, the fourth I won't.
You can't?
No, I got going to a big meeting in, David on the fourth.
Okay, here's my final offer. How about the afternoon of the 2nd and all day on the 3rd?
Yeah.
Does that work? That's the final, Lorraine.
But,
Half a day on the
fourth is
2nd.
good to me.
And that'll work.
Do it.
That'll work.
Or that would be impossible.
Okay, so we'll send out an email invite, and also when I get a draft agenda together, we're having SMT on Monday, and we formulate the agenda. I'm gonna send it out to you, see if those are items that you'd like to see, and also alternatively, I'm also interested in what you guys think and what you'd like to see at the workshops. So, looking for your input. Okay. Thank you.
Chairman.
Welcome. I should have had this done before Christmas.
So,
I like being there. I'm okay with that.
the next item up is, counselors' activities for December. Well, I think so, well, there wasn't much on there, so. So, for the month of December, December the 5th, we had a county council meeting. December the 6th, I attended Mayors and Reeves meeting. December the 10th was the 2020 budget meeting. December 11th, I met with Ann for our Reed CEO meeting. The 12th, the Community Foundation funding presentations at their office down there. It was full, it was very interesting. They give out rural grants and grants to different projects around the city and communities around. But they have one donation from a rancher at Finch Creek that only goes to rural activities, and that's the only, there's only 4 people qualified this year. And it's, that was his only request when he gave the money, it has to be to a rural project. So it was quite interesting, that one. December the 13th, I did not attend that, I couldn't go that day. And December the 19th, we had county council meeting. Ken?
And for December 5th was the county meeting. The 6th is the highway training, and the 10th was the 2020 budget, and then 19th was county council.
Claus, you have a question?
Yeah, I got a question for you. The Highway 20, is that over? Because we heard rumors that it was.
So there are no more meetings until April, which is our AGM. Okay. Tori?
December 2nd, we had a Lethbridge Regional Waste Management Services Commission meeting. The 4th, Water Commission meeting. 5th, County Council meeting. That evening, Chinook Arch Library Board meeting. The 10th, 2020 budget meeting. The 16th, I was supposed to have a Lynn Pathway meeting, but we weren't able to have quorum, so we've postponed that meeting. And the 19th, we had a county council meeting.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. December 5th had a county council meeting. 10th had our final budget meeting. 16th had an Exwison Park Committee meeting. 18th, Community Futures Lethbridge meeting. And on the 19th, the second county council meeting of the month.
Yes, 5th county council meeting, excuse me, 10th budget meeting, 11th Colville Chamber of Commerce meeting, 12th South Grove Regional Initiative meeting, and then the 19th another council meeting.
Morris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 2nd, North County Potable Water Co-op meeting. On the 5th, County Council meeting, and on the 10th, budget meeting, and the 19th, another council meeting, and that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Claus?
December 2nd, Lethbridge Regional Waste Management Service Commission meeting, and December 5th, County Council meeting. The 10th, budget meeting, and the 18th, Economic Development Lethbridge, and the 19th, County Council meeting, and the 20th, Sailor meeting.
I'll say what I'll do.
We just, we're gonna have a meeting, I'm not saying the 31st, and it's gonna be here, so if anybody that is, wants to join that meeting, it starts at around 12 at lunchtime, so you are welcome. And hopefully here.
Here, yeah.
Yeah. And if anybody, well, and hopefully we're gonna find out where the final, the site is gonna be. So that's gonna be part of that one, and they were meeting with the Minister of Environment, that's actually today. And so we're kind of excited about what's gonna come out of there, and because we have better expectations from this government than we did from the previous ones.
The site selectors, how many are they down to? Just write down the site selectors.
3 sites.
Okay, where are those? Are they public or?
No, yeah, that's public. That was already known since, I think, November. And that is the County of Newell, the County of Falcon, and the Wheatland County.
So, just out of curiosity, what are the, like when you were looking at these sites, how are they going to get rid of their weight, their energy? Like, they're generating steam, right, from the...
They're generating, yeah, steam and electricity.
So they got somebody who has a greenhouse that could facilitate that, or not?
All those were issues that they have to have in place in order to qualify for a site. None of us have heard on the board that none of us had heard where the sites are going to be, and that's confidential. And but even it's only the executive that knows that, and for the rest of that, that's all supposed to be in place, that they have to have those kind of things in order to qualify for a site. So I assume that's all correct.
Okay. So I don't know whether everybody received this or not, but on March the 12th in St. Albert, they're having a Recycling Council of Alberta is holding a full-day symposium on waste to energy in partnership with the Alberta Plastics Recycling Association. So they're going to be discussing more or less recycling and using waste to generate power.
I got that notification too.
I don't know whether there's anybody, whether we should send somebody to something like that. Did you get that?
Yeah, I did, but I looked at it quickly. Jeremy, did you get a copy of that?
Sorry, which one?
The, what's it?
It just says it's the waste to energy symposium in St. Albert.
Don't recall seeing.
It's on the waste committee.
The which committee? Us?
Yeah, would that be helpful, that maybe we don't have to send somebody out there? Because I'm pretty sure that somebody from SAY was gonna be there, and if we could have, if I could get a report back from that person, what went on there, would that be helpful? Or do we still wanna have one of ours attend?
Well, the only thing that might be of advantage would be the second part of the workshop. There's what they're gonna talk about waste to energy companies that are already currently operating in the province. How interesting that is. It's too bad it wasn't a couple of days later, because you're gonna be in Edmonton anyways. You can look into it, yeah. Okay. Is there anybody who wants a copy of this? Should I send it out to you? Okay, yeah.
I declutter all the time.
Okay. Okay. So there's no further business. We could, motion to adjourn.
Well, I was gonna just mention something, but it does not necessarily need to be in council, I guess.
That's okay, we're gonna have a little chit chat after.
Oh, that's good.
I'll do that.
Okay, I'll move to the adjourn.
Yeah, cool. Wait, thank you so much.
Should just write his name down, because he does it every time anyways. All in favor?